I lost my cool and said some awful things. I don't feel bad about it, but it has destroyed husband. Just looking for some advice really. Last night I just absolutely let loose on my husband. I told him that he is selfish, doesn't prioritize anybody or anything but his computer. He doesn't help tidy. He doesn't parent his daughter who is absolutely being let down. Lots of mental health issues at age 9. I basically told him it was his and his ex's fault his daughter is so messed up and he was letting her down, and asked him if he even loved her. I then told him that I feel as though he just settled with me because it was easier than starting with somebody else. I told him he had no get up and go and that he does not fulfill his responsibilities to his family. I could go on. My husband told me that I do this every few months and just destroy his self-esteem and tell him what an awful person he is. It was so extreme last night that he actually said he didn't want to carry on in the relationship. I don't know whether he means it or it was something to hurt me. When I really reflect on the situation, I can see my part in it all. I have emotionally shut off from him. Years of feeling unloved. I don't talk about issues when they arise effectively, so the issues become huge problems and I blow every 4 months or so. I am very uncaring and blunt when I finally let loose. My husband is actually a very good man. He will help me with anything when asked. He never shouts, he attempts to change, he's kind. On the other hand, he basically didn't want to have sex with me for over 2 years. Very stressful time with everyday life. This caused me to just emotionally break. He is not affectionate, he doesn't talk about any issues we may be having. He is basically a passive husband and father. He tries to make things better, but I've just shut down and almost feel nothing. I want to love him, but something's stopping me. Am I the messed up emotionally abusive person in all of this? What can I do? I don't even feel bad for what I said because I meant it. The usual Reddit answers apply here. Individual therapy for you. Couples therapy if you want to save the marriage. Neither of you are happy, you are shut down, not raising anything with him, he's not talking either. You say he does nothing and is a awful parent who is screwing up his kid completely and failing as a husband and father. And then you say he is a good helpful ma who is kind and tries to change for you. Which is it? You sound like you need personally therapy. Sounds like this relationship is over and the daughter is suffering the brunt of it. Split for her health. My boyfriend is being a monster on Twitter over an anime character. My 28F boyfriend, 30M, is acting like a monster on Twitter over an anime character and I don't know what to do. While I also watch and read anime and manga, my boyfriend and I have different tastes. I prefer romances, he prefers action. So we'll talk and encourage each other's interests and occasionally find things to watch together, but for the most part we have our own reading lists. I guess a couple days ago a character my boyfriend doesn't care for got badly injured? Died? I'm not sure, but either way my boyfriend said he was glad the story was going the way it was, since he thought it was a decent end for the character's redemption arc. He also said he felt bad for the people who shipped this character with the main one, they're both boys. To me, he left it at that. A few hours ago, a friend of mine sent me a link to one of his tweets with just the message, "You should see this." I have an account but don't use Twitter, so I hadn't seen anything he'd posted before. I was shocked and horrified when I saw his tweet and others he'd made. He was just being cruel, taunting people who were upset over the character's death, laughing at them crying, which is just hypocritical since he sobbed over Tony Stark, saying really homophobic and just horrible things to people that, when I looked at their profiles, all seemed to be queer and or young. I'm by myself, and what I read is pretty evenly split between gay and straight romances, so seeing some of the things he was saying hurt on a personal level. I looked at the series wiki and read the summaries about the two characters, and while I don't know for sure, having not read or watched it myself, I could easily see myself being a shipper of that couple if I ever did, which meant a lot of his hate was also pointed at me. The things he said were just, to put it lightly, disgusting. I don't know what to do now. In person he's been nothing but sweet and supportive, but I feel like this is him showing his true colors behind the wall of anonymity. I want to kick him out of my house. He has his own apartment that he rents, but has slowly been moving into the house I own until his lease is up, and cut contact, but I could be overreacting. Or maybe not. The friend who sent me the tweet suggests scorched earth, but this is a 2-year-old relationship where this is the first time I'm seeing something like this from him. Any advice on this would be greatly appreciated. Edit. Good morning everyone. I'm sorry for not responding directly to each person when I went to sleep last night. This post had 2 comments, and now there's a lot of you. I do appreciate the advice so far. I'll probably try to talk to him tonight when we're both home from work about what I saw and see what answers he gives me. I won't be taking "it's just a joke" or anything like that as an excuse, though depending on what he says I might try to get him to do therapy if there's something going on I'm not aware of. That's what feels right to me now this morning, but we'll see what happens tonight. I'll admit part of me wants to wake him up now, but I have to leave soon and he doesn't work until later, so it'll have to wait until we're not trying to rush the conversation and he's not just woken up. A couple of people said they knew my boyfriend's Twitter and are claiming it's one particular person. Please don't do this. My boyfriend's Twitter isn't that big, it's just his personal social media account. I know he's interacted with big accounts, since I saw some of the things he reblogged, but he himself is not one. I say this because I'm asking people to not try and find his account, since I know he's posted some things about me and our relationship there, with my permission. So please respect my privacy in this, and please do not try and connect me with anyone else involved in this drama. I'm concerned about my boyfriend, not some random person online, even if they're doing the same thing. Can't believe I got a BNHA spoiler from this sub of all places? In all seriousness though, the way your husband acts online is very troubling, and you definitely won't be overreacting if you decide to kick him out. Can you check how far back this goes? It might be a one-off incident where something set him off, or it might be a pattern of online abusive behavior. For me personally, also the homophobic comments would be an absolute deal-breaker, but if you really want to save the relationship, maybe you could suggest couples, or personal, therapy. I'd recommend that you talk to him via phone, text where possible. Leaving him before our first wedding anniversary. I'm just utterly broken. This whole separation is significant other fixable on his part. Wake up earlier to help with our toddler. Don't stay on the Xbox until 4 a.m. and then wake up at 2 p.m. Stop spending all our money on weed and coming home stoned every night, barely able to talk. Stop drinking. He can get angry when he's drunk, nothing physical, and after the last time it happened, I told him if we were to stay together he's not to touch a drop of drink. He's been coming home every night after getting stoned with alcohol on his breath. He claims that just because he's having one drink it shouldn't be a problem, but of course it doesn't work like that. Stop lying to me. I understand he's struggling with these things and knows I get mad, but for God's sake lying to me about it is just the worst. I have no trust in what he's saying now. There are a few other issues but these are the main ones. And he just can't change to fix our marriage. It's making me miserable and depressed, my anxiety is through the roof. I've been telling him for 5 months that he needs to sort his SHT out or I'm leaving. And he hasn't made a single change. Usually whenever I bring it up he gets defensive and gaslights me. But last night I had a complete breakdown and had a panic attack, I cried for hours. And he actually listened to me. He understood that he's in the wrong, and said that if I have to go then he accepts that. That he will love me no matter what, and we'll always be friends and have a good relationship for our son. It broke me because I feel like I can finally leave. I don't want to, I love him to death, but it's what needs to happen. We haven't even been married a year. Our first wedding anniversary is this month. We aren't very old, I'm 24 and he's 28. I've learned a lot from my mistakes, to say the least. It's now 1 p.m. and he's still not awake. I wonder if he's forgotten everything we talked about last night. We'll see. I'm just heartbroken. I'm not enough for him to change. Edit. I'm receiving a few replies asking if I knew he had issues before I married him, and if so, why. I've said this in a comment, but while yes, I did know I was marrying someone who smoked weed, it wasn't never as big of an issue as it is now. Back then he could still function. He still helped around the house, woke up and went to bed at a reasonable time, was always honest with me, helped with our son, was still a good partner etc. This time is so much worse. He's risking a roof over our head and having food to eat. He's lying to me constantly to the point where I don't believe a word he says. He's neglecting my emotional needs. Not long ago I was vomiting and rather ill, and he still chose to go out for 3 hours smoking. He's gaslighting me and making me feel as if this is all in my head. I never saw this coming. Also, thank you from the bottom of my heart for the supportive comments. I'm not enough for him to change. That's really not how it works. This is all on him and says nothing about you or your value. I'm glad you're leaving. I think you'll feel relief once you get over the initial sadness. He's being an awful husband and father, and leaving is the right call. It honestly doesn't sound like it would be so easily fixable. There seem to be some really dysfunctional patterns that got into your relationship, and patterns aren't easy to fix, especially if it's as many as you say. Sometimes things just aren't working out. It's not about you not being good enough. His lack of actions aren't a result of how good or bad you are. My parents won't cook for me and I don't know what to do. For context, I'm an older teen and my parents are divorced and have been for years and live on the same property about a block apart. So basically growing up my parents always cooked for me, but I was a really picky eater. It was a sensory and texture problem for me for a long time. And slowly over time they kind of just gave up. My mom barely cooks for herself but does make real food late at night, and my dad only makes bachelor food, i.e. cereal, frozen food, peanut butter toast, ramen. I had arguments with my parents in the past about why they wouldn't cook, and they'd just get really defensive and my mom would tell me she's too busy and start arguments with my dad, and my dad would say since he doesn't know how to cook for two people. Despite being a chef, in the food industry for 30 years. He also gets extreme anxiety throwing food out and refuses to buy Tupperware because we don't have enough room and it doesn't get eaten. I used to be fine just living off of whatever they'd make for me and the limited snacks around the house, but recently I visited my half-sister alone for a little over a week, and being fed home-cooked dinners reminded me why I argued for it, and it made me feel a lot physically better. So instead of fighting, I figured I'd just start cooking, and when I got home and told them, they just went, "I told you to eat better," and variations on "I told you so" basically. Now they both almost completely refuse to teach me how to cook but do buy ingredients for me. I'd like to just suck it up and just get used to it, but the unfortunate part is that I'm autistic. We just found that out recently. And have executive dysfunction. We've all known for at least a year. And sometimes I just can't cook, but now I'm expected to, and if I ask for food my mom gets frustrated and defensive, and my dad doesn't really have plans and just gives me cereal or toast or something. It's all just really frustrating, and I wish they'd act more caring, I guess. On top of all this, I'm 2.5 years recovered from an eating disorder. My parents have no idea I had one. And all this has been really triggering. What can I do to make things better? Too long did not read. I'm not being taught to cook, my parents won't cook, and sometimes I can't due to mental disabilities. What can I do to make things better? Any advice appreciated. I'm also autistic. I suggest Good Eats with Alton Brown and then a copy of The Joy of Cooking. Both start at a very basic level. Could you perhaps ask your half-sister to teach you to cook even just a few basic dishes? There are millions of cooking videos online. Pick a few basic beginner's meals you like and look them up on YouTube. You can also ask other family members, aunts, uncles, grandparents, sister, to teach you a few basics. You're old enough to cook for yourself. You'll have to teach yourself whether you watch tutorials online or read books. It's a basic life skill. My mom never taught me either. Google recipes. There's many quick and easy ones to start with. You're old enough to learn. I mean, when you go to live on your own, how do you expect to eat other than ordering out, which will get expensive?